What is up, you guys? I hope you're doing well. We're here for our weekly anchor message. This is where we get our spiritual assignments and lessons for the week. If you haven't already watched last night's weekly energy oracle forecast, this really ties in to our spiritual focus this week. The big highlight, I would say, for last night was, and I highly suggest watching last night's video, but there are going to be feelings of anxiety and anger that are going to be presenting themselves within and without this week. And this is happening both on a personal level and within the collective. And I remember thinking, wow, I wonder what it's going to be this week that's going to stir up all of this. You know, it's like we're always sitting on the edge of our seat right now, just waiting for the next bomb to drop. And it's interesting too, because I went to work and I didn't have time to do like a short video before work today. I was trying to prepare my taxes. The group text from work was going off. It was really distracting and it was like irritating. And then like I randomly got my period early. So I was just like, I'm extra on edge and enraged with everything going on in the world right now. And then, you know, people are really upset over, I cannot remember this guy's name to save my life. I keep reading it. And Omer, the man who was sent to El Salvador by mistake, who was a husband and a father, and people are demanding that he's sent back. The 9 judges ruled 9-0, bring him back. Like, this was not right. It was a mistake. You should bring him back. The administration is like, no, we don't have to. You can't make us. The El Salvadorian government is like, sorry, too bad, which is terrifying. In every implication, and people are just sharing more satellite images of that prison, and it just looks basically like the worst scenario you can imagine. Suspicious flesh-colored piles from satellite images outside of structures. The implications are there, and it's terrifying. And so my insides have just been sick all day, thinking about the people that have been sent there. What is happening in this country? What is yet to happen? How do we deal with this? What do we do at this point? And then going to work and having to navigate just generally irritating shift that is like as hard as it can be for not that much. And then being annoyed at the people around me for just like being distracted, moving slow, not being super helpful, just getting focused on the fucking golf tournament yesterday. And I'm like, there are like so many things happening right now that are imminent, and this one person just kept obsessively just going on and on ad nauseum over the golf tournament. And so it was bringing out all of this rage inside of me and the anxiety, and just trying to calm myself inside, whilst at the same time being grateful for being unusually busy. We were, our covers grew. I don't know. I suddenly had like so many tables, and I prayed Psalm 72 before work and on the way to work. And yeah, so I can't say enough about the effectiveness and power of praying regardless, but specifically I have had real blessings and real miracles that I feel like have happened when I pray Psalm 72, because these are nights where we're not supposed to be busy at the restaurant, and then all of a sudden we get all this extra business that we're not expecting. So I'm just thankful to God for those miracles. Now, on the heels of Passover, what happens is after Passover, after the Seder, there is a 40-day period called the Omer. And those 40 days correspond to the 40 years that the Israelites were wandering the wilderness. Now, the Israelites wouldn't have had to spend 40 years in the wilderness had they been able to unify and have absolute certainty in the Creator and do the soul correction, correcting for the original sin of Adam that we all share. There was this collection of souls that kept coming back, and the third major incarnation, well, the first one was the generation of Noah, and they were destroyed in the flood, and we've talked about that recently, for becoming perverse and out of control and corrupt. And then the second time humanity they weren't wiped out completely, but they were disrupted. And it was the same generation of souls that had come back again and reincarnated, and they had to become very unified, and they figured out how to wield the spiritual laws to like co-create and do some major like powerful things. They were building the Tower of Babel, but to me, I interpret that as because they wanted to build a tower all the way to heaven so that they could reach heaven on their own. Well, I don't think this was a physical tower. I think that this was becoming more advanced than their spiritual evolution could allow for in a responsible way. So imagine people who, you can imagine easily in this time, like think about it. We got so advanced in science, we figured out how to split the atom, which is the building block of creation. And what did we do? What did we use it for? To destroy, to kill, to hurt. All for our own means, not our own means, but the government. Someone somewhere had some greedy agenda, and they turned it into the atom bomb. So think about that in the days of Babel, where they got so advanced and they figured out how to become creators and maybe even mess with time and space. And they weren't actually doing the elevation of their soul that would make them more compassionate, more understanding, more loving, more sharing, more Christ-like, but instead they were becoming corrupted and selfish and greedy and power hungry and all of that. And so God had to disrupt their unity, because they figured out that the unity is what gave them ultimate power, and caused them to be confused by making everyone speak these different languages. And so he interrupted their advancement with the confusion of the not speaking the same languages. And that's where we get that term babbling. Fast forward, this group of souls is reincarnated again, and they decide, okay, we're going to come to Earth. We're going to live in slavery. We're going to correct for our the past negativity that we've been building up, and we're going to decide that we are not going to stay in the comfort of slavery, that we are going to be liberated, and we're going to set out into the wilderness, into the unknown. And that's when we're going to absolutely practice certainty in the Creator. And we are going to be unified, and we are going to be holy, and we are going to reveal miracles. And so there was a period after the splitting of the Red Sea that they were on track. They were holy, they were full of faith and certainty, they were unified, they had love and togetherness. And this was when they were around Mount Sinai. And at that time, they were revealing miracles, right? There was no death and suffering and sickness. People were like growing back limbs that had been gone missing because their faith was and their unity was that powerful. But it didn't take long for them to become complacent, to become dissatisfied, to become angry and greedy and lustful again, and want things that they didn't have, and curse their manna. They didn't want the manna that they were given, and they wanted, when can we settle down? And so they started bickering and complaining again, and questioning Moses' leadership. And so that's when, and then Moses went up to Mount Sinai to like connect with God. He came back and they had erected the golden calf. And he was like, you broke the covenant with God. What are you doing? And so it was their negativity that ended up bringing about all of these afflictions and chaos. Well, we're the same people, right? It's our negativity that brings on all the afflictions and the chaos. But it is our certainty and our faith in the Creator and our unity with one another that bring about miracles and end pain and death and suffering. So on the heels of Passover, when we do the ritual and we do the Seder meal, it's like we connect with all of this light from the Creator. And we are bringing that in and channeling it in. But when we channel and we connect with the light that we haven't earned, we have to go through a process of embodying that light through some discipline and some like going through tests and embodying that elevation, that wisdom, that extra miracle juice, so to speak. Otherwise, it kind of turns into chaos. It's like it's not embodied in our physical practice, and then it kind of it becomes like this spiritual credit card interest that we have to pay in chaos. So what we have after revealing all this light from Passover, what we do is we go through this 40 days of challenge. And so we are challenged. Parts of our personality are challenged. Our fears are challenged. Our weaknesses are challenged. And so during this period, we have this opportunity to transcend those parts of ourselves and truly alchemize that darkness into goodness, turning that bitterness into sweetness, trying to put our differences behind us, trying to step out and take acts of faith and leaps of faith, knowing that the means will be provided, letting go of our anger, rising above our fear. And so the 40 days after Passover are challenging, but they're also opportunities to reveal insane miracles and blessings. So that's where we are. And so day one, the Omer this week starts it, and we hit the ground running, just feeling challenged with anxiety and anger today. So from the wild unknown archetypes for our spiritual lessons, the Queen shows up again this week, followed by Venom, followed by the Seed, underneath the Queen we have Three of Cups, underneath the Venom card, we've got the Fool. Underneath the Seed, we have Four of Pentacles. And the last card, we got a bonus card, was the Feminine King of Wands, which in this deck, which is the Mystical Moments Tarot, there is the Queen, there's the Knight and Page. There's also the Queen, the King, and then there's a feminine king of each suit. And there's also an Empress, an Emperor, and a feminine Emperor. And to me, the way I interpret that is that the Queen in any suit is the mastery of the feminine embodiment of the element of that suit and the aspects that are associated with that element. The king is the mastery of the masculine aspects of that element. And each one that progresses has aspects of the lower court cards within them. It's like a progression of maturity. So the page is the youngest and the least mature, the least learned of the suit. And then you get to the knight, and they're more mature and more learned and more wise. And they embody the aspects of the suit more. And then you get to the queen, and she's, specifically the feminine aspects of that suit. The king contains the queen within him, and then also in some aspects, but is an embodiment of the self-mastered masculine aspects of the suit. But the king, the feminine king of wands, or the feminine king in any of the suits, is like the full mastery of both the masculine and the feminine aspects that are balanced within. And they represent the alchemical marriage of that, both the masculine and feminine aspects being mastered within that suit and transcending. So let's go back. So the queen card in the archetypes deck has to do with, like, think about those Disney queens, like Snow White's stepmother queen and Cinderella's stepmother, and some of the wicked queens you think of, but then also think about the good benevolent queens that you remember throughout fairy tales. This queen represents both. There are both aspects within this queen, the light queen and the shadow queen. When the light queen is activated, it's like you are nurturing, you are inspiring, you're a nurturing and loving leader that inspires people to follow you. They're convinced and compelled by what you communicate. You have the heart and spirit and passion that inspires others and is able to change people's consciousness and change people's hearts and lead them with you to act alongside of you. Queens are more associated with nurturing the people, taking care of the poor, the people that need charity. They make sure that their kingdom is like all their needs are met and their rights are looked after, and the children are taken care of, the elderly are taken care of. No one is left out and exposed to poverty. It's like everyone has a place to live, everybody has something to eat, everybody has health care, everybody has an education. Their spiritual and emotional needs are looked after. So the maleficent queen, though, has this inner rage that drives her and bitterness, and it can make the queen cold and exacting and vengeful. So think about cold female leadership that seems to care nothing about taking care of people in need or people who are disenfranchised, and they're so caught up in the greedy agenda that they've been taken in by that toxic masculine patriarchal ruling with an iron fist and like seeking after power and possession, and they don't really care about taking care of the needy or the children or the orphans or the widows, right? So those queens can also be very vindictive, very vengeful, dangerous, and they lead with fear rather than inspiration. Think about, is it the Chronicles of Narnia where there's like the good queen and then there's like that evil ice queen that's threatening the kingdom? Like this is the archetype, but the two are in all of us. And so when we are focused on our anger, and when we are driven by our anxiety and our fear, that can really lead us into that shadow aspect of the queen. And what happens is we turn people off, and we can't be effective leaders. So especially with the venom card being positioned in the middle of the reading here, it's like warning us, like, don't become the dark queen. Make sure, even in the midst of these things that fill us with this righteous anger and fill our hearts with fear for the people that we care about, and even people we don't know, but we care about what happens to them too, and we feel their pain. We have to make sure that that holy vision of sorrow keeps us soft and open and able to stay soft and open, because it's like Alec, I can't remember his last name, but it's the guy who's a comedian, and he is an advocate for non-binary and trans people. I guess maybe that they might be their pronouns, but they dress in a feminine and very flamboyant and avant-garde kind of way. And they are constantly getting like trolled by these men who are so afraid of being perceived as anything but uber alpha masculine male. And he is so disciplined and good at not tit for tatting with them. And instead of saying something sarcastic, he answers them with a lot of compassion. And I'm sorry that you have been forced into this belief that you have to be this way, because it shows that you're terrified and that you have not been able to be yourself and be free. And because of that, you're trying to deflect the energy and project that fear and that rage and that venom and that hate on other people. And so that is such a great example of what will eventually get through to someone at some point and melt their vitriol and melt their armor. I remember hearing a story once about this girl who was one of those people from Westboro Baptist Church who used to protest gay people's funerals and gay soldiers' funerals and be with that hate message. And she actually met her husband on Twitter because he was patient enough and gentle enough to discuss things with her. And finally, she saw the light and came around and left Westboro Baptist Church. And I'm not that good at it, honestly. Like, I get pissed and I get saucy and, full of piss and vinegar. And that's the Aries in me with the Cancer moon and Libra rising. I'm just all this air and fire, and I'm highly combustible. And I commend people that have that kind of discipline and that kind of ability to have gentle, patient conversations with people like that, and not just say, you know what, forget these people. But he kept on and kept on and kept on, and eventually they got married. Like, in what world does that happen? But in the world of the good queen. That man, he was embodying that benevolent queen, that divine feminine aspect that's within all of us, whether you're male or female or non-binary, it doesn't matter. We have both aspects in our soul. And so he was nurturing her heart to heart. So in order to bring unity, the Three of Cups is about coming together. It's about having kindred spirits come together in like-minded celebration. And company and being in the company of good friends, right? Communities that help support one another. Like, a woman was pointing out the fact that, the boycotts are going to affect the owners of these mega corporations, but it also is going to cause people to lose their jobs. So what happens to the innocent people who are already struggling once those jobs are gone, or once they lose those jobs? Is there any organization around community support for those people when they need something? And so that's another part of considering all factors before we jump on bandwagons. Now, I do agree with the boycotts to some degree, but we have to be aware of how that affects who it really affects and how that realistically affects people. So that was where I was coming from with my argument for Aldi, when everybody was jumping down my throat about how they changed the language on their website and they rolled back DI. And it's like, I've talked to the people at the store and they actually are well taken care of. The employees are well taken care of. Aldi has low prices so that people can afford groceries. Like, the Aldi that I go to is run by women of color. Like, it's diverse. Like, whether or not they have to change the language on their website to stay in business, ultimately, by evidence, they're a good business. They try to practice environmental sustainability. Like, they do a lot of things that are better than a lot of companies. So sometimes you have to weigh out the pros and cons. So I was arguing on behalf of Aldi, and I had people jumping down my throat. And I was like, okay, first of all, we're all on the same side here. But the reason why our side isn't winning is because we're arguing amongst ourselves, splitting hairs. Whereas the other side just dumbly go along with the plan and don't ask questions, which is dangerous. Look what was happening. They're not even like questioning. A lot of people are starting to wake up, but it's like too late now. You know, it's like, stay awake, get everybody waking up. We need that, but damage is being done. So unity is what is more powerful than anything. And having our hearts and our minds unified around a common cause for the sake of others, not for ourselves, not for personal gain, but for the sake of bringing goodness, revealing God's light and goodness into the world. So we really need to do everything that we can to take care of our own anger and our own rage and our own fear that's driving us to be reactive, and transmute that into goodness, so that we're not perpetuating darkness and more darkness and more darkness. Because when you go clap back at people, and I'm not saying I've never clapped back at people, but they double down in their own vitriol and in their own darkness and in their own stance, you know, they get more like stone. So we have to stay soft, and we have to have our hearts cannot be embittered. Moving on to the venom. The venom is within us and it's all around us. So the first thing we have to do is transmute our own venom. That's part of the Passover Seder, is chewing up the horseradish until the pain is neutralized. We turn bitterness into sweetness. And so you can't swallow the horseradish until the pain is neutralized, until it's broken down enough to have been transformed and it starts to become sweet. This is the whole goal of Hanukkah as well, during the darkest time of the year. So here we are, having just gone through this traditional ritual and taken in that idea, but now we have to put that into action over the Omer, over these 40 days. So we have to let go of our anger and let go of our fear and let go of our venom and the things that are toxic and poisonous within our head that cause us to take part in evil eye and evil speech, and then perpetuate more darkness. Because what that does, when we get into a dark state of mind and we start doing evil eye, putting the evil eye on people and speaking evil tongue, what that does is it puts us in danger, because it opens us up to chaos and darkness. Whereas when we keep it zipped and we stay focused on the light of the Creator and turning that darkness into goodness, not bypassing it, not sweeping it into the rug, really dealing with it. But when we can turn that darkness into light, that puts us in affinity with the light of the Creator, and we draw close to the Creator, and it puts us in provision and protection. Now you see the Fool here. The Fool is associated with the I can't think of which Bible verse it is, but it's also associated with like the newborn child, that childlike innocence that believes, that has no conditioning and no subconscious beliefs, but that believes in God, believes that they are being guided and led. And so the fool carries very light baggage, and they're always portrayed as like walking close to the edge of a cliff. And even though they are near danger, they fear no evil. Oh, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. And so here this character is walking along this path, and what they don't see is that the crocodile is this looming danger that might consume them. And she doesn't see it because she's just focused on all the beauty and all the light. And so what happens is our venom is like this crocodile, and it's described as that in the Bible. Our negative consciousness, our negative thoughts are like crocodiles. Evil is always crouching at the gate. Darkness is always crouching at the gate. The snake is always crouching at the gate, meaning that we have to constantly be on guard and vigilant about our consciousness and our thoughts, because the ego is like our reflexive response mechanism. It is our resting, easy, automatic, reflexive nature is to be selfish and in survival mode and intake mode and in I need to be in control. It's the subconscious fear that is programmed to tell us, oh, I'm going to help you survive, so you've got to listen to me. You have to do what I say. I'm going to give you a sense of control, right? It's also the part of us that feels victimized, and it feels like we are self-righteous and, oh, how dare they? And it's the prideful part of ourselves, which gets us in trouble every time. So it's this venom that is going to put us in danger. It's the venom that opens us up. It takes us out of that spiritual protection, because when we fall out of the affinity with the Creator, we have to share affinity of form. Think about the law of conservation of matter. So the law of vibration, like attracts like. So when we are like the Creator, we draw close to the Creator. The moment we lose that consciousness, and then we have more affinity with the opponent, then we have fallen out of our connection with the Creator. We cut ourselves off from that protection and blessing. So when we are focused on the light, though, we transcend these dangers, and we are protected, and we are guided and carried by our angelic support. So trying our best to transform this venom is going to reveal this surrounding light of our soul, is the pressure that's pushing down on us to change, to put us through these challenges so that we can break apart the negative shells that are concealing our inner light. The inner light is the light emanating from our spirit and our perfected soul. And that inner light is the part that actually protects us and acts as a magnet for blessing. So the more that we transmute that darkness, the more we reveal our inner light. the more that our soul is pressuring us to transmute that darkness, that surrounding light is like closing in, and it's creating pressure and challenge that offers us opportunities to see the darkness within us so that we can purge ourselves of it. So the seed here with the Four of Pentacles. The seed represents our seed level of consciousness. The consciousness that we're in is the seed level of any action that we're taking, anything that we're trying to create, anything that we do is affected by the seed level of our consciousness. So if you are in a consciousness of fear, of anger, of bitterness, of jealousy, of envy, and you take action, even if it's not related to that thing that your panties are in a twist about, that energy gets into the things that you're doing. It makes your hands unclean, and everything that you put your hands to is like smudged with that negative consciousness. So you're contaminating the seeds that you're planting. If you recall from last night's spread, there was a card that said infected, and it was an image of this egg that was cracked and rotten looking, and it had this snake going through it. That's precisely what this card is saying. That depending on what seed are you planting, are you planting this pure pearl of wisdom and purity and like God consciousness and Christ consciousness? Because if so, then you will achieve stability. The Four of Pentacles can be stability, or the Four of Pentacles can be blocked because you're trying to grasp for control. And so the more that we try to white knuckle and control our situation, the more we lock ourselves out of the real blessing. And we try to hold on to our small idea of what we think is going to deliver us whatever it is that we think is going to be, in our mindset, the right way to go or the perfect solution. But our white-knuckled grip on trying to control everything is what locks us out from the greater miracle. Miracles they transcend our logic. They transcend our understanding. And so we have to be certain in the Creator's plan. Even though we're not certain about what's going to happen or if the things are going to work out the way that we want, we have to be certain that we are being taken care of, that we are being guided. And we have to let go to a certain degree and put ourselves in God's hands. Doesn't mean we're complacent. It doesn't mean that we don't act when we're supposed to. But we can't bulldoze our way and force our agenda, because it only serves to keep us stuck and trapped and locked out of our true blessing, right? And keep others out and keep blessings out. So when we have that certainty, though, that is building our house upon the rock. And so having our own prayer practice, having our own relationship with the Creator is absolutely necessary right now. We can't put it on somebody else to do it for us. It's like the people at work that I've been getting frustrated with. I keep trying to tell them, learn Psalm 72, pray Psalm 72, have it on a piece of paper, say it before work. And they're like, yeah, just keep saying it for us, Liz. And I'm like, I can't have a relationship with God for you. What if I'm not here for you to ask these things of? No one will help you. You have to have that on your own. You have to have that relationship. I can't have a relationship with God for you. My prayers might bring more guests into the restaurant, but once they sit in your section, it's up to you if they end up giving you 10% tips or 25% tips. So that's your prayer practice that you have to do on your own. And that's the same here. It's like we can build stability, but you can't fake faith when things are terrifying and uncertain and you don't know what to do, or you're called to do something that requires you to do acts of courage and take bold leaps, not knowing what lies ahead, not knowing what's going to be out in the wilderness, but believing that there will be manna there when you get there. So the seed level of your consciousness is absolutely vital, and we have to keep our mind space pure. We have to keep that place within us at peace. Because with that, it's in that stillness and that peace that we can really connect with the Holy Spirit's voice. And that's the quiet voice that says, hey, go left, go right, do this, don't do that, don't go there. And sometimes we don't even know why. And we do something we're compelled to do. We don't ask any questions. And then later on, we're like, oh my God, thank God that I just happened to want to do that day. I didn't even know why. It didn't make sense to me. I just did it. And then all of a sudden it led to all these good things or helped me avoid catastrophe. And then our last card is the King of Wands, but it's the feminine King of Wands. And so I want to read you this card because I think it's really, every word of it is so on point for us. A woman all dressed in red, and notice that the red in the Queen card as well. And when you read the booklet, it does point out, look for how much other red is in the reading. Look for other places that the red shows up. And here we are with the feminine King of Wands, all dressed in red, with a ranunculus behind her, or a peony. So the female King of Wands, a woman all dressed in red, is standing in the midst of a garden. And isn't it funny that all the festivals and feasts commemorate the Exodus from Egypt, but then also everything, every struggle, every process that mankind has to go through originated in the Garden of Eden. That's where we came from. That is our seed level. That is the seed of every soul of mankind on earth. So it all goes back to the garden every time. And tell me, guys, I want to do a course on Genesis for you. Genesis, first couple of chapters, all about the garden. There's so much going on in the garden that we're never taught in regular Christian church or Catholic church. There are deep secrets going on about the Garden of Eden that deep theologists study, and then rabbinical studies are around it, and there's oral Torah around it. But Protestants, we don't learn about all this. There's more lore around the Catholic probably teachings, but there's so much in Genesis that and probably all of those lenses add to it, but they only have their own hermeneutic lens that they're approaching it from. And so between the rabbinical commentary that I've listened to about it, the Catholic mysticism and theological studies that I've listened to about it, and then the Kabbalistic understanding of the Garden of Eden, I could talk for days on this. So I would like to do a concise course that introduces these concepts and explains the symbolism and what's going on, so that it's easier. You get more out of the Genesis from that. But let me know if you guys would be interested in that in the comments. So a woman all dressed in red is standing in the midst of a garden. The deep color of her cape and the red rose stand for passion, strength, and energy. Tall plants are growing next to her and surround her, leaving very little space. In the dense atmosphere, the female king brings light and clarity with her wand. Think about that. In the dense atmosphere, the female king brings light and clarity with her wand. A bright beam of shining stars emerges out of the wand and illuminates the sky. Against all obstacles and complexities, the King of Wands will always find a solution and a way to move forward, leading the people out of darkness. So making sure that we have that clarity and that peace and that calmness and that connection to the Creator. A beam, let's read that again. So the tall plants are growing next to her and surround her, leaving very little space. Everything's closing in. Everything's overwhelming. Everything is there's darkness all around us. It's just, everything just feels like we can't get through it. We can't see a way through all of this dense brush. Have you ever been in the woods and you're on the trail, and then you have to get off the trail for something, and then suddenly you're surrounded by all the thorn bushes, and you almost can't even see where the trail was because it's so thick and so dense, and it's panic sets in, and you feel like you're lost all of a sudden and you're going to be trapped. So tall plants are growing next to her and surround her, leaving very little space. In this dense atmosphere, the female king brings light and clarity with her wand. A bright beam of shining stars emerges out of the wand and illuminates the sky. Against all obstacles and complexities, the King of Wands will always find a solution and a way to move forward, leading the people out of darkness. Upright meaning magnetism, leadership, visionary, mastermind, authority, and decisiveness. Remember, that was one of the themes of Friday's weekend reading, was like overcoming indecisiveness and becoming very decisive. Reverse meaning dominance, reluctance, uninspired direction. So bringing people together, we need to bring the people out of darkness, and we have to be the example of strength and courage and clarity. Because just like in the simple issue of just like people at work, like I'm telling them, pray the Psalms. And they're like, you do it for us. We don't know what to do. Tell us what to do. And I'm like, I'm telling you what to do. And they're like, thanks, keep it up. And I'm like, you have to have this, your own relationship. How quickly they forget. It is a simple task. I've been like, I have the video on my page. All you have to do is watch it. Because where two or more are gathered, like anything is possible. Nothing can be impossible unto you if you pray in the name of Jesus, where two or more are gathered. Simple as that. Simple as watching the video. Y'all can find that protection from poverty psalm on my Instagram. You can find it on my YouTube page. There's a playlist called Secrets of the Psalms. I am wearing a navy blue vertical striped shirt with my suspenders. Hair's down. There's a label on the video. I'm telling you, this works. Watch that and repeat it 7 times specifically. 7 is the number of divine intervention. And apparently King David at some point said in the Psalms, I pray to you 7 times a day. I didn't know that. My nephew's wife pointed that out when she watched the video. And she was like, oh my God. So, all right, well, that is all for tonight, you guys. I have got to get up early and do my taxes tomorrow. It's tax day tomorrow, and not that I want to pay them, but I also don't want to suffer the consequences. So maybe I'll get a return. Who knows? All right, we will be back tomorrow for our weekly manifestation oracle message. Until then, shalom, shalom, peace be with you. I think season 5 of The Chosen is going to drop soon, or if it already hasn't, so very excited. All right, much love. Ciao.